Dadgum government. Good morning, Muskegon, and all of you out there in radio, podcast, iHeartRadio, and computer land. This is I in Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, your host here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios, with that legendary friend and engineer of mine, Oscar Osbo, and a sort of new face as our co-host this morning, because she's been here before, but kind of got squeezed out when we had a full house. Back again is a columnist with the Norton Lakeshore Examiner, Tammy Derouin. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Jim. Pleasure to be here.
Got squeezed out or just couldn't get a word in edgewise?
Pretty much both. We had a full house there. We had David Wells, the attorney, and Congressman Hoekstra, and Tammy, and myself, and Oscar. Good golly, we were full that day. We got another full day here today also. In the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to focus, as promised, on the, I think, extremely important and potentially extremely expensive amendments and constitutional changes that are going to be on the November ballot. These, there are 6 of them, I believe, now, and we're going to be talking with an expert on this, Nick DeLue from Resch Strategy. So he'll be calling in a little bit after 9 o'clock, and then in our last half hour, sometime after 9:30, we're going to get a visit from syndicated talk show host and columnist Bradley Dean, who will be telling us, he'll be in West Michigan this coming week, next Saturday actually, and one of the areas that he's really been promoting is the youth vote and how to communicate with the youth, not just the voting side of it, but communicating conservative ideals and also. We'll be talking with Bradley Dean then. So our conversation will be a little shorter than it normally is in terms of just us, but we still remain Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show. And Tammy, you're probably not aware of this, but and actually Oscar wasn't either this morning. But today is a big day for Eye on Muskegon. Today marks the last show of our first year.
Really?
We will have completed 1 year. We are expecting and looking forward to many years going forward, but we finished a year.
And God knows the first couple of shows, I wasn't sure that that year was going to come about, but it did.
I think God had the same conclusion after the first couple of shows.
That's great.
Your host, Jim Riley, had those same questions. But we did survive. So
well, congratulations.
Good for us. Our official birth date, I guess you'd call it, is September 11th, a very hallowed day. And the first guest we had who really helped us out, because that first show actually was quite good, was Captain Fred Birch, who was a retired Navy captain. And he had a very compelling story about where he was and how he responded as commander of a Navy base.
You had a good story, too, though.
I don't recall that story, but that's because I'm old.
Your uncle.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah,
I remember. See,
there we go.
What a memory, eh?
My uncle is
not that old yet.
There we are. It's good. One of us has got some kind of memory. But anyway, so we are celebrating a little bit today, and again, we're the radio show that does want to hear from you, and give us a call 231-830-3109. If you do want to contact us, you're going to have to call in soon or late, because when we do have a phone guest, and both of these guests today will be on the phone, we can't accept your calls because our system is just that way. You know, when we probably in the middle of our second year, we'll probably have massive technology upgrades and get that private jet that's been promised.
Right. So we got that. You've got that big blimp coming too, don't you?
Yeah, rather than a private jet, we'll
get a big blimp. It says Jim Riley, I am Muskegon on the side of it.
Hey, we were at the Michigan State football game a week ago, and they had the Goodyear blimp, and that is it's very cool in and of itself. But when it gets dark, they've got this big. This big board on it that's lit up, and it's got, advertisements and other things, Go State and things of that sort. But when it got totally dark, they had the American flag kind of flittering on the board, and that was really, really cool. So
we should get some with your shirt on there with one of those little hand waving things with your hands waving.
We'll Photoshop the hand in, so it won't be my regular hand.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There we go. Yeah, moving right along. Hey, before we get into the meat of the show, of course, I always like to do a little, on this day in history. And as if you didn't need another reason to feel guilty about, not doing everything perfectly, today is National Grandparents' Day. So if you didn't get the card out you don't have lunch or brunch planned with Grandma, Grandpa, feel awful.
Wait a minute now. Grandpa of 19 grandkids, so I'm ready here, right here.
Well, and if you haven't, feel awful if you haven't done your obligations, and feel even more awful if no one's remembered you on this day.
Well, how about if I have my daughters, Maddie and Caitlin, wish my parents right now a happy Grandparents' Day. There you go.
You got it covered. You took it right off the table. Good. So I love these special days that the card companies put out.
Indeed, yes.
So, hey, but coincidental with this, which actually I think is just a perfect perfect coincidence with National Grandparents' Day. Today is the first day of National Suicide Prevention Week. So, in case you're really depressed, there are.
That's when I had kids and they were at home. That's.
And so there's all sorts of media kits and fact sheets and all sorts of things that you can go dig up.
Grandkids you can send home. Kids.
Well, the confluence of these various events always amazes me. And if you are feeling not up to par, perhaps, hopefully not suicidal, but not up to par. There are perhaps some other reasons. I remember now, they probably don't do this any longer in schools, but when I was in high school, we had to read books by Leo Tolstoy. And today is his birthday, so that would make a youngster perhaps think of suicide. Today, and I'm not sure if this was on purpose because it was National Suicide Prevention Week, but the Mao Zedong passed away today.
Oh, really?
Back in, not today, of course, but back in 1976. And for those of us conservatives, this might push you off the edge. Today was the admission to the United States of America of California.
Oh.
And, of course, how did that work out for you? It's worked out pretty well for 150 years or so, but now there are questions. Something to remember that so many people have forgotten. The first, in 1957, the first civil rights bill ever to pass Congress was signed into law by President Eisenhower, a Republican, of course. And, of course, today, that's kind of an interestingly, too, today is the day that Republican Abraham Lincoln, he wasn't a Republican at the time, but received his law license. So those in the media who would like you to think that the racial justice and civil rights and things of that are solely controlled by the left, you got to remember that the Republican Party, and there's lots of reasons not to like the Republican Party, but the Republican Party was the political party back in the 1800s and certainly in the 1900s that was championing the civil rights for this country, and it was the Democrat Party, the party of the Dixiecrats and others that were really trying to hold folks back. So those days are gone, but it's nice, I think, to remember that there's some decent folks over there on the right.
If anybody hasn't read or seen documentaries on Abe Lincoln, I mean, what a phenomenal man he was before he was president. That's just anyway.
Well, no, you're right though. Yeah, his life history.
He was phenomenal. Yeah,
and is certainly one that we can all, I think. It wouldn't hurt to relearn, because one of the things that was consistent with Abraham Lincoln's life was it was a long series of failures, and he just refused to give up.
Right.
Yep.
And
all his kids passing away, and I don't know.
It was a very, very tough situation,
life.
And he rose above it, and that's how you succeed in life, truly. I mean, obviously, some people are dealt a hand that they cannot overcome, but most can, and that's what we want to do here. Hey, there's a quote today which I got from one of Tammy's columns. Then I'll quote it here: "The liberties of our country, the freedom of our civil constitution, are worth defending against all hazards, and it is our duty to defend them against all attacks." That's from Sam Adams, prior to his beer-making days, I think. But and Tammy, this quote that I just read was in a column that you had written about the new movie that has really taken over at least some parts of the country, and that is the 2016 Obama's America.
Yes.
And that's a movie. It's obviously got a conservative point of view. And I would just remind folks that it is now, and it's going to be in its second week at the Cinema Carousel. As a matter of fact, the first showing today is at 12:15. So, but you wrote a little, I think, a very excellent column, and maybe you want to just talk a bit about it because you're in a different generation than I am, and the President
By how many
Obama,
centuries?
By not centuries, but certainly decades. Just decades. but go, extrapolate a little bit.
Well, I have been for the last several years now, really, I guess what you'd say, called myself a conservative, and following the news and digging deeper, finding out things that the media, mainstream media, is not reporting, and when I saw this movie come out, I obviously had to go see it. And after I saw the movie, I went right to Barnes & Noble and purchased the book because I needed to follow up more on it.
Now, this was the book written by Dinesh D'Souza,
yes.
who is the, I don't know if he's the producer or he was the main driver. He wrote the book.
He wrote the book. And it was just amazing. I mean, I wrote in the column that this was not news to me. I've already read this. I've researched it. But to actually see it on the screen in an hour and a half, all of it compiled together, wow. It just hits you. You see bits and pieces of it, through the news here and there, but quite eye-opening. And to hear the gaffes that I would hear in the audience that, this was new to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people just aren't willing to recognize that our country is in the dire straits that it really is in.
Well, I would recommend, and we're gonna talk after the show here to figure out a way to get your columns, which are in the Norton Lakeshore Examiner.
Yes.
But we want to get them online, so we'll figure out a way that actually I'll start linking through Ion Muskegon once we get these.
Okay.
But your columns are excellent, and thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I would just recommend that anybody, really, especially if you're undecided in terms of how to vote this year, this is a really great movie. It will help you understand to a certain extent, why the president believes what he believes, and in fact, it'll clarify what he does believe, and many of his supporters. And I don't think it's what, like you say, you heard gasps in the theater.
Well, what I thought was kind of eye-opening was during the convention when Michelle Obama made the statement that being the president doesn't change who you are, it reveals who you are. And I thought that was very profound because this movie indeed tells people who he really is. And
wow.
Yeah,
excellent
it
point.
Does.
Excellent point.
Because, he wasn't, well, you can go to where he was born. To me, that's irrelevant at this point because there's so much that is worth not voting him back in for. I mean, definitely I'd like to know where he was born, but there is so much in his history of his life that is so questionable that people need to know about it. And where's the press? Yeah,
that's the point. And as we hear people talking about the dog on the roof of the Romneys, and what was it? Paul Ryan had misstated his marathon time. I mean, these are the big lies.
Oh, yes.
Well, anyway, this is the book actually is probably better than the movie if you've got 15 hours to read it. But it's well sourced. It's well sourced, and it's an opportunity. I don't want to beat it to death. And in particular, I don't want to beat it to death when Roger Miller wants to start singing. So we will take a break and come back and talk about a bunch of other things that have to do more with Muskegon.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6600. 888-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Well, your dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, your dadgum.
You know, maybe the answer is just to have fewer pockets in your clothes, and then you'll have fewer hands in those clothes. Hello again. This is I Am Muskegon with your host, Jim Riley, Oscar Osbo, and Tammy Derouin. And I've pronounced it correctly twice in a row. I'm so proud. Hey, we were talking about the President of the United States, and, of course, a big election coming up in another couple of months. But there was, I hope you understood when the jobless rate declined from 8.3% to 8.1%, that, in fact, the numbers were really awful. And I've got a post in Muskegon Pundit, and there have been much written about the sheer numbers. The only reason that the rate went down was that many hundreds of thousands of people just got taken off the rolls, and the what they call the labor participation rate is the lowest since shortly after World War II. So fewer people are working today as a percentage of the population than you have to go back into the 40s. To have anything near that. And, of course, we just had finished a world war. But with these 96,000 new jobs that many on the left are touting as, oh, this is wonderful, we continue to add jobs, in that same month, 173,000 new food stamp recipients.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
You know, and that's awful. If you've made that slide from employed to unemployment, that's one thing. But it's another thing when you've slid back into essentially becoming a ward of the government assistance, and it's very hard to get off of that. And I'd like to just bring two things up. These are two events that happened at the county commission this past week, but they give you a sense of where we're going here. I'll read it to you. These were passed, by the way. To authorize community mental health director to sign an amendment to the contract, blah blah blah, for video production of an outreach and training video targeted towards school-age children effective August 1st in the amount not to exceed $8,000. The reason that the Department of Community Mental Health decided that they were going to have an $8,000 video produced was because they had gotten a grant and they hadn't spent the entire grant.
Oh.
And
my name should have been in there, doggone it.
Well,
I have camera. I would have 8,000. Not a problem.
It's not actually. The reason I bring this up is not so much to say how awful it is that they're spending money that was in the grant, because that seems to be fairly common. But when the county, the director of the Board of Mental Health, and when the 11 county commissioners asked a little bit about this, which was somewhat of a surprise, but there was nobody saying, this is awful. You're just throwing the money away. There was no. Wait a minute. Couldn't we just, either save it, or why do we have to spend every penny? Because time and again we're told that, oops, we overspent the grant, and then we have to add extra money. So it's the mindset of the people who are spending other people's money, and I just thought, what an interesting, it's only $8,000. Well, how many counties are there in the country? And this was 1 week. But there was another one just shortly afterwards. Actually, it was the next one. To authorize the approval of renewal of 4 supportive housing projects, blah, 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 through HUD, consistent, quote, with the Muskegon County Consolidated Plan for Housing, quote, the Blueprint to End Homelessness, 2006-2016. The County of Muskegon has a blueprint to end homelessness.
Okay.
That's the county board. That's the Einsteins on our county board of commissioners have a blueprint to end homelessness. So there we go. There's the hubris. Let's just take $8,000 and toss it out the window to our buddies over who are making videos, and then we're going to take another much.
I guess I should have been one of the buddies, right?
Well, you should have been one of the buddies, and I think the sad thing about it is that here we live in a community. I mean, you don't have to drive too far to see empty houses everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, everywhere.
Right.
You know, you don't need to just drive around downtown. You can see all the subsidized, condos and townhomes and all that are empty, and yet we've got a serious problem. A problem serious enough that the Board of County Commissioners, from the chairman Ken Mahoney to every one of the other 11 county commissioners, said, "Oh, this is a great idea." At least back in 2006, we'll have a blueprint to end homelessness. There we go. Hey, I do want to shift a bit. We're going to be talking about these initiatives, and we don't have a lot of time here. But I last week talked a little bit about Michigan being number one in something, and that is we have the most expensive car insurance premiums in the country by far. The average, or the median, they use the term median, is about $4,500 for car insurance in Michigan. The next highest is $2,570. So it's almost $2,000 more, almost darn near double what we have here in Michigan. And the reason for this is not just that we have no fault. 12 other states have no fault, but we're the only state in the country that has unlimited, that mandates drivers purchase unlimited personal injury protection. The next highest state is $50,000. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but because of this unlimited, and unlimited is as much as you can get, folks, in Michigan it costs 57% more to settle a claim. In other words, that's when there's a claim, it's 57% more in Michigan than any other state. Michigan jury injury losses 40% higher than the U.S. as a whole. And here's an example: an MRI on the neck in Michigan is $3,258 when required because of car accident. When paid via this no fault. Under Medicare, it's $483. So what we have here is our politicians who have voted for this. It sounds great, the poor people, they need super duper help and everything else. In the state, who is legally doing the right thing by providing car insurance, is paying almost $2,000 a year more. And of course, what does that do? It encourages scofflaws. I mean, $4,500 is an awful lot of extra money for people. Matter of fact, it's far less than I pay for my health insurance, and so there's essentially no penalty for not having car insurance, right?
Right.
We're not going to put somebody. They might want to put them in the new Muskegon jail because we'll have all these extra beds, but in general, that's not going to happen. And I would just use that as a cautionary tale. On one hand, we've got county commissioners who we have extra money. Let's make a video for the children, and putting together their plan to end homelessness, as if we needed more plans to end homelessness. And on the other hand, we've got real people with real families. People with, remember, this is $4,400 per car. With two cars, three cars.
Isn't it the government though that locks us in to where we can spend the money and where we can't? If you don't spend it here, we can't spend it in other areas. Seems like I hear that.
That's very true. Yes.
Yeah.
What happens is much of the spending that comes into the counties is tagged specifically, and it's just like the situation with the community mental health. This was tagged at a particular deal. Although I can't imagine that there was an expectation that they'd have extra money to do videos. But that's the result of saying you can't use it for anything else. You can't use it to pay down debt. And this is a.
And where's this video going to be seen? Does it say?
Well, that's a great question because Commissioner Rolstein Wilkins said, "Are we going to be able to see it?" And before it's out there, and the director of community mental health seemed a little shocked. Well, geez, why would you be interested in seeing it? And she didn't say that, but her body language was clear. And she said, "Oh yeah, we'll make it available to you in some way." But again, it's not going to be seen by anybody. They're not going to report on all the kids that saw it and how wonderful it was and everything else. It's just $8,000 times millions upon millions apparently. But that's just the way things are. Let's see, we got just a few minutes. No, we don't even have a few minutes. Okay, coming up after the break, we are going to focus more on these initiatives and constitutional amendments with Nick DeLue of the Resch Institute, or Resch something else, but I'll figure that out when he comes back. So we will be back after the break.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
What you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Well, that dadgum government, they're still out there, and I on Muskegon finishing up our first year, the last show of the first year. We will begin the second year of our existence next week from today. And we have a guest on the phone, Nick DeLue, who is the communications director of Resch Strategies, has had a variety of other positions in our state in terms of being a political advocate for all sorts of wonderful things. And you currently, Nick, are advocating for something else. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your situation?
Yeah, hi, Jim, and congratulations on a big year. I'm pleased and proud to be a part of the anniversary show.
There we go. Thank you.
Right now we're doing some work with a group called Citizens Protecting Michigan's Constitution. As your listeners know, there are just a barrage of ballot proposals that they're going to be facing this November when they go to the polls, and a lot of these are confusing and troubling and deceptive, and so we're working with an organization of taxpayers, job providers, just concerned citizens from across the state, trying to raise awareness about the dangers that some of these ballot proposals pose. Because what they're asking voters to do is not to change a policy, but to lock in some changes into the Constitution. And we feel like the Constitution, that's the people's document, and it's time that we tell these special interest groups no and hands off our Constitution.
Nick, can I ask you a question? This has been asked of me numerous times, but there are initiatives, constitutional amendments, and then there's another one out there, another way to make changes. Why is a constitutional amendment different and perhaps more onerous than, let's say, an initiative, or what's the third one there? A referendum.
Initiatives and referendums, yeah. Those can be altered by voters through their elected representatives in the legislature. A constitutional amendment, that's locked in there. And the only way you're going to change a constitutional amendment, you're going to have another vote of the people. There's going to have to be a giant ballot process. You're going to have to spend millions and millions of dollars, and it's just incredibly difficult to change the Constitution. And so when these groups are trying to sneak in their own little money grabs into the Constitution, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make an end run around the legislature, which, again, is the people's representatives. We go every 2 years to the polls, and we elect members of the State House, and every 4 years we elect members of the State Senate and a governor. And we do that so that they can enact our will on the legislative process and in the way they craft laws. And by doing that end run, they're saying, look, we don't want to play by those rules. We want to lock something in the Constitution so it's permanent and so no one can mess with it. And you've got 3 proposals this year, Proposals 2, Proposal 3, and Proposal 4, which are being funded primarily by outside special interest groups that would lock in huge money-making opportunities for those special interest groups into the Constitution, and it would be almost impossible to ever get rid of them.
All right, well, let's take them one at a time. You hit the first one.
Okay. Well, Proposal 2, that's, I believe, the most dangerous and the one that folks will probably wind up hearing the most about between now and November. And that is a proposal, you might have heard of it as the Protect Our Jobs proposal. And going forward,
who could be against protecting our jobs? That sounds like a wonderful idea.
It sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Until you figure out what it does, but that's sort of the trick also. No one's quite sure what it does, not even the lawyer who wrote the darn thing. This is a proposal that's being funded, millions and millions of dollars being poured in by the labor unions, by Washington, D.C. based unions, the AFL-CIO, the UAW, huge funding from the Michigan Education Association here in the state. The unions are backing this, and what it would do is it would set into the Constitution a rule that basically says if it can be negotiated, it cannot be legislated. And so just imagine that this would be for public sector employees, for taxpayer-funded employees. So you're talking about the obvious things, pensions. Right now taxpayer-funded pensions for public employees, they outpace private sector pensions, and so there's been recent legislation that says, look, we need to make sure benefits and pay are in line with the private sector.
And they are really about to bankrupt many of our cities and counties.
Absolutely. Our local governments have been struggling with this for years, and they've been doing something about it recently. They've been saying, look, we've got to just get these in line. Okay, we're not trying to hurt anybody. We've just got to get them in line. Otherwise, we'll go bankrupt and we won't be able to pay anyone.
Okay.
Well, what this would say is that you can't pass any law or make any policy about those things. It is up to the labor union to negotiate those things, and there's no way that you can pass a law or a rule to change it. Okay, so that's the obvious thing. But then think about it in broader terms, okay? Right now there's a law in the state of Michigan that requires publicly funded school bus drivers to take safety training. Well,
okay.
That's an issue that can be negotiated and can be bargained. And so under this constitutional amendment, it is likely that it would be constitutionally prohibited from passing a law requiring school bus drivers to take safety training.
So every single negotiation in every single school district or city or county would have to sit down and negotiate this individually. And, of course, we know that the unions bring their negotiators to the table, and they're very intelligent and knowledgeable and successful in this. Unfortunately, the taxpayer never has a seat on the other side of the table. So things of this sort would essentially be totally controlled by the unions.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Let me just say, this sort of illustrates the broader danger of this entire thing, okay? Nancy Pelosi famously said, pass the bill to understand what's in it. And some of the other, our great luminaries in Congress said similar things. They asked the union lawyer who wrote this thing, what will it actually do? What laws will it actually overturn? Because the unions published themselves a list of 88 laws and bills that this would overturn. Now, they've since taken that list down because they don't want people to actually see it. They realized, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have told people that. But they initially published their own list. Now, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan said it would actually be close to 170 or more laws currently on the books that it would overturn, and perhaps more. But the lawyer who drafted this thing said, and let me just read you a quote here, no one can determine what laws and sections of the Constitution this proposal will affect. If it passes, its interaction with existing constitutional provisions, laws, and ordinances will be determined by the courts on a case-by-case basis.
Oh, so the good news is we're going to get more judicial decisions, more legal gridlock. We're going to get more employers, more municipalities who really don't even know what the law is. Oh, wow, this sounds like fun if you're an attorney.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. It is the Protect Our Jobs Act. It's the protect our legal jobs and our lawyerly jobs. You know?
Well, again, and the courts, and it sounds like a great job. A shovel ready for those in robes. Hey, I got a question. You mentioned though it is for the public workers, which would be, of course, those who work for the cities and the townships and the state and the counties and the like. But what I'm reading here says it also includes private workers. Is that true or not?
Well, see, this is where they sort of try and confuse folks. They say this is going to lock in and protect collective bargaining rights in the state constitution. Collective bargaining rights are not at risk. We have the right to free association in this state and in this country, and labor unions, will exist and can collectively bargain with private employers. What this is talking about locking in these things for public employees, where government can do something about it and can pass laws and can set rules.
And quite often, let me just add to this, because I've kind of dug into this a little bit. One of the problems is that it's very tough for folks who tend to be volunteer or underpaid, who are on a school board, who are on a county commission in counties other than Muskegon, but where they don't really want to, nor they have the backbone to do battle with the unions. And if this is codified to the point where the state can't, the state House, the state Senate can't do the heavy work for them, all these little bitty municipalities are going to get essentially steamrolled by the unions. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And you mentioned volunteering, which brings my mind back to something that was just shocking this week. A memo was leaked from the MEA, the Michigan Education Association, the state's largest teachers, and one of the biggest backers of this proposal. A memo was leaked from one of their lawyers that went out to their members, to their other regional leadership folks, explaining in their own words what this proposal would do and what laws it would overturn. In their estimation, and it listed dozens of changes that would affect education and dozens of laws that would be changed. This is the MEA saying these things. Here's just a quick list of the things that the MEA and then the Protect Our Jobs in their initial list of 88 plus laws said that they would change. Because you said volunteering. There's a law in the books right now that says parents are allowed to volunteer in schools. That makes total sense, right? Parents want to volunteer in school.
Yeah, isn't that encouraged? Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, according to this MEA memo, that law can be changed. And you say, now why would the MEA ever want to change that so parents can't volunteer in schools? Well, I'll tell you, because when parents volunteer in schools to say wash the tables down and wash the desks down, or to wipe off the chalkboards after the class has been dismissed, or to sweep the floors, well, they're doing things for free that union labor could otherwise do at taxpayers' expense.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, overturned under this would be protections for students that require the suspension of teachers accused of crimes like having sex with students. It would overturn a law enabling school districts to fire teachers who lied about their criminal history during the hiring process, because all these issues would now be topics of bargaining.
And they would be topics of bargaining in each individual school system too, right?
In each school system.
Oh, good going, golly. Okay, all right. This is scary. Hey, we've got to move on. I hate that. This is okay. One final thing. What I see from this, though, obviously, it's going to be very expensive for municipalities, for school districts, and the rest. But it's going to be kind of awful for businesses and others who are going to end up having to pay the taxes for these increased costs and the litigation that's sure to flourish. We will become a wonderful lawyer state. Anybody come up with a dollar amount that this is going to cost the taxpayers and the businesses of Muskegon? Of Michigan? Yeah.
I don't think it would be possible to come up with an accurately high enough number, because let me just give you the one comparison that we've got. The unions have pledged to spend up to $100 million on this and a couple of these other proposals. So if they're willing to pour in $100 million to make this happen,
yeah,
how much money do they see in their, when they do their own math?
Well,
I mean, it could. You look at the changes the changes that we've recently enacted in municipalities and at the state level to bring pensions in line and to bring retiree benefits in line with the private sector. Okay, those things save taxpayers tens and tens of millions of dollars each year. Okay,
yeah.
Now you just reverse those, and you're talking about a bill that all of a sudden goes up for taxpayers $10, $20, $30 million a year. And the reason they made those changes now is because every year that passes, those numbers get bigger. Because more folks are retiring, they're becoming, vested in these benefits that are out of line with what taxpayers can afford to pay.
All righty, good. It's going to be expensive.
If I could just jump in real quick here, this thought comes from the Mackinac Center. They're trying to portray this as, yes, innocent enough, protecting our jobs, but what this is also doing, it would fundamentally change the structure of the Michigan Constitution. And I don't know about everybody else, but I've had enough of fundamental changing in our lives over the last 4 years.
Fundamental change. Is that really?
Yes.
Yeah, we've had 4 years' experience of fundamental
exactly.
change. Yeah. Excellent point. And sadly, Michigan would be, would we be getting, moving in with the rest of the states in the country in doing this, a progressive move, or would we be the anomaly?
We would be the anomaly. We would be the outlier. This would be the most unfriendly state for taxpayers and for job makers in the nation when it comes to this sort of thing. That's why we need voters to please go to the polls in November and vote no on Proposal 2.
Okay.
Protect Michigan's Constitution. I mean, that's the message.
Let's move on to the renewable energy amendment. Everybody likes renewable energy. I mean, it's got to be cheaper and it's clean and it's renewable.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic, right?
If it worked.
Renewable energy is great. Now you're out on the lake shore there, beautiful Muskegon. The secret behind this, they call it the 25 by 25 ballot proposal. Okay, it's a blatantly dishonest attempt by out-of-state investors to use Michigan's Constitution to cash in on the energy market. Recent studies have shown it's going to cost taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. They've already raised and spent, close to $2.5–3 million on this thing. And where does that money come from? And this will tell you, you follow the money. They always say it's great old wisdom. Follow the money to figure out, what this is behind, or what's behind this. 87% of the money that was raised for this proposal thus far comes from out-of-state organizations and individuals.
Okay, now I don't necessarily like that, but if it's a good idea, I'm not all that offended by where the money comes from. But you said 25 by 25. Can you get a little clearer as to what exactly that means? Because don't we have coming up a initiative that had been voted on, I believe, by the State House and Senate that does mandate certain percentage. It's coming up, next year?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
We already have an alternative energy and a renewable energy goal that our state is working towards, and that's already set in place.
What is the percentage that we're looking to?
I believe they're looking for 12% in the next few years, and that's a reasonable goal, and the energy companies in the state have thought this is something we might be able to get to. We're shooting for it.
Okay.
They're working towards it. 25% by 2025 is just it's throw a dart at the board and say, okay, this number sounds good, and the idea that we'll even be able to get there. Technology changes every day. And then the sources of energy, we found windmills are just not cost effective and they're not good at producing energy. Well, that's what folks want to use right now, and will they be able to reach that goal? But the 25 by 25 says that 25% of all energy in Michigan will come from renewable energy sources by the year 2025. So it's just throw a dart at the wall.
Doesn't if I'm correct in this, doesn't that also exclude nuclear?
I believe it excludes nuclear. These are renewable sources. These are wind, clean energy.
So if fusion or fission were found to be cleaner, safer, etc., they couldn't even be added into the mix.
Right. Correct.
All right. Wonderful.
Correct. Now, and you mentioned, and I tend to agree with you on principle that if it's a good idea, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. Well, first of all, this is a bad idea. And I think this one, you'll be surprised where this money is actually coming from. Let me lay this out for you. 60% of the entire bankroll for this proposal comes from one source. It's called Green Tech Action Fund. based out of San Francisco, California.
Ooh,
Okay,
that sounds bad.
It does right off the top, doesn't it? San Francisco, California.
Nancy Pelosi town. Yeah.
Green Tech Action Fund is headed by a hedge fund billionaire, okay, out of California, who has made his fortune selling, guess what?
Energy credits.
Wind turbines.
Ooh, wind turbine. Ooh, those are good
wind
deals.
turbines.
We love them here in Muskegon.
Right. How would you love them over every square foot of your lakeshore? Because to get 25% by 2025, you're going to drive from Berrien County up to up north of Traverse City, and you're going to see wind turbines the entire way, and you're still not going to hit your goal. Okay, But by putting all these up, by erecting these, it's a really good deal for the guy who spent a couple $1 million to get this proposal on the ballot.
You bet.
Because if it passes, he's just going to be raking in the cash for the next 2 decades.
Well, there's another,
and it's going to be from Michigan taxpayers.
There's another side to this also. As President Obama, prior to, I believe, his announcing for presidency, so this would have been about 4 or 5 years ago, said that according to his plan, that electricity rates in the United States would necessarily skyrocket. So if Michigan were to enact this constitutional amendment, something that couldn't even be tweaked by the elected politicians in our state, wouldn't our electrical rates then go really, really high? And wouldn't that be just another reason for companies to either move out or take Michigan off their list of places that they might consider to build in?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're hitting the nail on the head. And the question is, the president also famously said, he wants gas prices to go higher. He wants energy rates to go higher so that it's driving down usage because, he wants to make the oceans rise again and whatever that was in his speech. Okay, so if those things are happening, those things affect us.
Well, doesn't manufacturing use energy? I mean, if in fact you want manufacturing in your state, wouldn't, among other things, you want to reduce the cost of arguably one of their bigger expenses, which would be energy?
Well, one would think.
But that's not what this does. Okay.
That's not what this does, no. And so the question is, even if you love alternative energy, okay, and it's great. Everybody loves renewable energy, okay? We all do our part. We shut off the water when we're brushing our teeth. We turn off the lights when we leave the room. We try and use less. We're all responsible. We're good stewards of the planet and the resources we have. Even if you love alternative energy, do you want to lock this into the Constitution where it can't be changed and where it's going to cost us a bundle and where the money that taxpayers are paying is heading out of state to make a fat cat in San Francisco exponentially richer?
Wow,
okay?
That's well said. I'll just add one little point to that, and that is that let's say we decided to do a certain percentage of clean energy, and it didn't work out well. If it was voted on by the Michigan State Senate and House, they could just take a quick vote and change it. And if, in fact, the people in the state supported, in this case, it's primarily a Democrat-supported initiative, that'd be fine. But at least they can change it, they can tweak it. But once this has become part of the Constitution of the state of Michigan, that's a big deal. It's not
absolutely.
It's not going to change, and companies are going to see that.
Let me say too, this 25 by 25 proposal, just like the collective bargaining proposal, and those are not necessarily these are not partisan issues. Democrats and Republicans agree on these things, that these are bad ideas for the state of Michigan. They're bad for our Constitution.
Well, if there were enough people who felt they were good, they would have voted for them, and you wouldn't need the constitutional amendment.
I just feel that this needs to be researched more, and that's something the private sector needs to do, not the government.
Well, I would agree with you there. The problem is the research now that must be done is by us in the media and by the voters. So that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, this is something that it would have been nice to be able to communicate with your elected officials. Hey, we're running a little short on time, so we've got one final one of the 6, by the way. We will hit all of them before the election, but this final one, the home health care amendment, this sounds wonderful. Everybody likes home health care.
You love home health care, and if you love home health care, you need to vote no on this proposal. This is an incredibly deceptive proposal, okay? The Radical Service Employees International Union, the SEIU, okay, huge backer of the president and every lefty cause in the world. They've got a scheme to force the unionization of home health care workers in the state of Michigan and to skim dues by pretending that independent contractors, people who just take care of their mom or their ill sister, by pretending that they're state employees. What this ballot proposal would do, and this is a scheme that they were operating under Jennifer Granholm, under the previous governor, and the legislature put an end to this after Governor Snyder was elected. And they said, now the SEIU is back and saying, oh, well, if the legislature doesn't like it, let's put it in the Constitution. So what you've got here is you've got folks who are being cared for in their homes.
Which is an efficient way to do it. They're getting paid Medicare or Medicaid primarily, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's much more cost effective for taxpayers because you're not paying hospital bills, you're not paying for huge staff. They're being cared for in the comfort of their own homes. It's much better for them because they're around familiar surroundings, they're with loved ones. And typically a home health care worker is someone's daughter or someone's son or someone's mother or someone's father. Most home health care workers in the state of Michigan are family members.
Well, so let me ask you this: why wouldn't they just vote to join a union? Why do we need a constitutional amendment?
Well, first of all, what the idea of a single person working for their mom needing a union? What is a union going to do for one woman who only works at home with her mother?
Well, my softball to you was they don't want to be in the union, and the only way to make it happen is for good-hearted people who don't understand this amendment to vote to force them to be. In essence, we are doing a union vote for people who've already chosen not to be in the union.
Correct.
Oh, good golly!
And the SEIU has already taken $30 million from Michigan's recipients.
Yeah, over the last 6 years, they got $30 million.
$30 million. Oh, good.
And this is money directly out of the pockets of senior citizens and
families who are doing the job.
Right.
Nick, we got a break coming up. Thank you very much. We'll have you on again. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye bye now. We will be back with Bradley Dean after the break.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
We're back at Eye on Muskegon, Muskegon County's #1 rated political talk radio show, and actually the #1 rated show of any sort on the radio in our time slot, Sunday mornings. And we have a very honored to have a guest on the phone with us from Minnesota, as we find out, trying to keep his young children from popping in the room. We've got Bradley Dean. Bradley is the founder and executive director of a nonprofit ministry, You Can Run But You Cannot Hide International. And he's got a lot of, actually done a lot of things. He's going to be in town here down in Ottawa County next Saturday. So, Bradley, welcome, and maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, first and foremost. I've done 336 high schools in 22 different states, and I was just one of those guys that was asked to go reach out to a public high school because they were having problems in it by a church group. And I thought, well, that's just not for me, because I was fresh out of the world playing in a rock and roll band. And I thought, you know what, I guess I can understand these guys. So what I did is I went and did one high school the first year, and the second year I did 3 high schools. I think the third year I did over 100 high schools across the country. And I was just sick and tired of really looking at the younger generation, just thinking about what they're dealing with and how they're, for the most part, being forgotten about. And so what I did is I reached inside, and I've done 336 since then. And before I knew it, I was on public radio, and now we're on 53 stations across the country and 53 countries as well. So we're really out there doing what needs to get done, and we're just trying to bring resolve to the problems that everybody's complaining about. So in saying all that, to say this, I'm also the bus driver, the drummer for the band Junkyard Prophet, a husband to 1, and a daddy to 5.
Junkyard Prophet. I got to love that. And 5 kids to boot.
Yep, 5 kids to boot. All boys.
Well, I'm here with Tammy. Tammy, how many kids have you got?
2.
You've got 2, and
Girls.
she's just marveling at your ability to juggle. Now you've got you're also a syndicated columnist for WorldNet Daily, and of course you talked about you've got a radio show, the Sons of Liberty. You're coming into not to Muskegon actually. You're coming into Ottawa County next week. What are you going to be talking about?
Well, basically, I just got back from the RNC out in Tampa. We went to California, did 3 tea parties 2 weeks ago. Got back home, and one of our PRs called us up and said, Bradley, you need to get to Tampa Bay and get on Radio Row because they're not quite getting what's going on here. So I got down to RNC, we got to Radio Row, met a lot of people, and did 7 interviews probably within the first couple hours that we were there. And I was just interjecting to the people that we need to understand. Everybody can look at Obama and complain about what's going on. But friends, we need to understand that 68% of those that voted for Obama in 2008 were actually the demographic of 18 to 31 years old. I said, this is nothing new in history. I mean, if you look back at Hitler, he went for the church kids. Those were called Hitler's youth. If you look at Mao Zedong, he did the exact same thing. And now we have an Obama, and he's got something called the Youth Brigade. And we need to wake up and open our eyes as to what's going on in our country. And so that was pretty much my point that I wanted to interject into the RNC, because for the most part, when you look at the RNC, you're dealing with an age demographic of 50 to 70 years old. I mean, with all due respect, you look at some of these people, and they're dressed, and they still act like they're 25 years old going to an Elvis concert, and then we wonder why there's such an age gap, or a gap between the age groups, between the older and the younger generation. And I just want to do my best to bridge that gap, because if we don't sow into our younger generation, they're going to be there to curse us when we're older.
Now, I have not, actually, my intent before the show was to look your photo up of you, but my understanding is that you look like a hippie.
Well, I'm not a hippie, I can tell you that. If you think Elvis Presley with long hair looks like a hippie, then you can call me a hippie. I'm just telling you what my wife says, of course. But no, I'm not a hippie at all. I mean, if you look at the MTV generation, who are they aimed at? 18. It's actually 14 to about 31 years old. And, you know, as Paul said, because I am a preacher, I become all things to all men to win the more to Christ. And there's plus I'm in the band Junkyard Prophet, which was voted second best unsigned band nationwide. If the older generation is doing the job, then they can have at it. But I'm just basically reaching into a generation that doesn't understand the older generation, and they totally get me. So it totally works for me.
Now, it seems to me now that you're going to be in Ottawa County here next week, and you're going to be there in an evening. Matter of fact, why don't I just give the specifics here? It's going to be at the West Ottawa Performing Arts Center. It will be Saturday, September 15th. You're going to do a concert first, which I think is kind of cool, so you will have your junkyarders with you. That concert begins from 5 to 6, and then from 6 to 7:15 you're going to give your presentation. And then I think what's very cool is after that, from 7:15 or so on, you're going to have open mic for public questioning. How are you typically received when you have these open mics?
Well, let me bring you to the high schools. When I do the high school assemblies, out of the 336 that we've done, you can drop a pin on the floor after the concert. Because we win their respect through the music. Keep in mind the band Junkyard Prophet was voted second best unsigned to a band called POD. Now, I say second best unsigned because when we had the 5 label offers, we said no to the money and we said yes to the high school. So it's not that we couldn't have done what POD did. We just chose not the money. We chose the younger generation. So So in saying that, plus we also have 4 videos across the world, which has a potential of 444 million people that have seen our videos, and we've sold 50,000 albums in Minneapolis. One more thing, too, Jim. I'm not old enough to be a hippie.
All right. Well, I'll do my homework before we speak again, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see you next Saturday.
Yeah, but no, I mean, the response, guys, is it's overwhelming because the young are talking to the young, and I'm not going to demoralize them. I'm not going there to, 700,000 students that come out of public schools every year in this country, guys, can't even read their diplomas. I kid you negative. So when I'm going there, and you should see some of the emails that I get from these students across the country, and I'm not talking about just high school students. I'm talking about collegiate. I'm talking about dads and moms. They can't spell. They can't write. You have to figure out what they're saying. So I'm really going in there and just, giving them my heart because that's all I can do. And I was where they're at. The only difference is this: for the last 17 years of my life, I've been studying the Constitution and the Word of God. And what did George Washington, our founder, say? He said religion and morality are the essential pillars of civil society. So if they don't know where they came from, they don't know where they're going. And what happens is when you get this young little hippie dude in there, all of a sudden these kids can relate, this younger generation can relate to me, and all of a sudden I'm giving them the information that no one ever told them.
Well, and it seems to me that message is got to be very threatening to a significant portion of at least the politically active.
Well, I would say if we did our homework, we could understand that the threat goes to about 1.7% of the population, especially if you're talking about the social issues. I mean, look what's going on at the DNC right now, guys. They had to move from an outdoor stadium of 74,000 seats into an arena indoors of 20,000 seats, and they still couldn't give away free tickets to seats. So in saying that, the threat is a lot more insignificant than some might think. The media is the one pushing the monster, that's all. Now,
when you have your event, let's take this one, for instance, which will not be at a high school, but it'll be in an evening, and you're all done. You've done the open mic and all that. Where do you go? What happens afterwards? Are people in contact with you, or what's the ultimate result, or at least the long-term result?
Well, we stay in contact. I think what we really want to do is educate, in a sense, drop the spiritual bomb and get out. Really wake up people and get them educated. And we bring products with us, and they can, everybody they have access to the Constitution. They have access to the Word of God. They have access to anything that I've got. And I just basically direct them, and I just tell them, listen, if anything I'm saying might not be true or you don't think it's true, I challenge you to go do your own homework. And for the most part, what you'll do is out of 1,000 people that we're expecting here in Ottawa, I would suspect that, you're going to get a couple hundred people that are going to wake up and they're going to say, you know what, I need to stand up and do something about what's going on. And that's really what we want to leave behind us. And they have access to us anytime that they would like. I just did California. I was in California, and we did 3 tea parties there. Been in contact with all 3 tea parties. They want to have us come back out again. We've been saturating the airwaves in California, so it's not just doing the event. We're actually hitting the states when we're there and educating the best way that we can.
Well, Ottawa County, it tends to be a conservative county, tends to be a Republican county. Muskegon County, it tends to be the opposite, and not surprisingly, our demographics, when compared to Ottawa County here in Muskegon, they don't show up very well. So it seems to me like we ought to have you here in Muskegon sometime. I will make sure that I put you on my list. Before we go, can you give us a contact information if people want to see your videos and things of that sort?
You can. It's youcanruninternational.com, which we'll be bringing to Ottawa. That will be the presentation to the band.
Okay.
YouCanRunInternational.com. And then if you'd like to see our radio program, who we are, what we look like, that's sonsoflibertyradio.com, sonsoflibertyradio.com.
I'm going to definitely take a look, and maybe we'll pick up some ideas on it. Bradley Dean, thanks so much, and what a wonderful mission you're on. Best of luck on Saturday, and
Thank you, Jim.
hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
What you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call
Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll-free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Well, we are back at Ion Muskegon. Tammy, Derouin, Oscar Osbo, and your host, Jim Riley. And we've got a little bit of time here, and a couple things I wanted to talk about. For those of you who are interested, certainly please try to make the event in Ottawa County next week, because it really sounds cool to me. But there was a recent study that was just announced, and I find this kind of interesting because it really wasn't recent, but this was the one that said that organic food has no nutritional or health benefits over ordinary food, according to a major study. And maybe not a lot of discussion, but I know that a lot of people who buy organic food, they buy it for different reasons, but generally, because it tends to cost quite a bit more, they buy it because they think it's healthier. And there have been study after study. Well, I'll read this to you. Researchers from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine said consumers were paying higher prices for organic food because of its perceived health benefits, creating a global organic market worth an estimated $48 billion, and this is in 2007. And a systematic review of 162 scientific papers published in the scientific literature over the last 50 years, however, found there was no significant difference. So this big news that just came out this past week is actually old news, as Arnold might say. And I've never heard
Arnold say that, but okay.
Old news. Oh, remember? No, they were going after the allegations of him groping women when he was running for governor.
Sorry.
And I thought
I was thinking about trying to think of a movie he did, but
no.
You're talking about governor when he was a governor.
This is governor. Well, this is pre-governor, but he, I think, very effectively parried the incessant questions. Old news. And that worked for him.
That's the only impersonation you've done so far that didn't sound like Clinton.
There we go.
It's amazing.
I did not do anything with that young lady. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because there's this mindset that has been foisted upon us by the media that, number one, organic foods are good, and if you buy something from Walmart, or in particular Walmart, but Myers or Walmart or whatever, that is in somehow bad, that you're not doing the right thing. And it's as if that they say, well, I want to support the local farmers and the local folks who come to the farmers market, which I have absolutely no problem with. But are those workers any more valuable? Are they any better people than the people who work at Walmart or Myers or Plum's? There's this mindset that we get it sinks into us through all the various media that the lady who's checking you out at Myers or stocking the shelves at Walmart or Plum's, their jobs are somehow not worthy because those companies actually provide health benefits. They actually make profits, and in fact, in Muskegon's case, the number one or two biggest taxpayer in the entire county is Myers. And yet we deify the folks who provide the organic foods and things of that sort. Certainly,
Myers has like an organic section too, though, I think. So,
yes, they do.
Yeah.
But their organic, I'm sure, is not as wonderful as the folks at the various farmers markets and things. And again, I'm not denigrating the farmers market, nor am I denigrating anybody who wants to buy organic foods. But open up your eyes, because we are consistently. We are diverted, into things that certain groups. This is back in 2007, this was a $50 billion business. It's a business, and they hire lobbyists, and they do their own advertising, and on and on and on. A couple of other things that happened just in this past week. Actually, one of my favorite headlines for the week was, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, here we go. This is an Egyptian cleric. This was a headline in the Times of Israel. Husbands beat your wives so they will mend their ways. Certainly hard to argue with Egyptian clerics on that one. But
yeah.
There we did that work out for you? No, maybe not. Hey, a couple things that did happen. Congressman Heisinger will now be facing a challenger in the Democrat ballot. Muskegon City Commissioner Willie German got 1,800 votes and a write-in. Apparently that was enough, so there will be a choice for people, and I think that's actually very healthy. Okay. One thing that I think is decidedly unhealthy, this is another headline from MLive, decision on Muskegon County Jail and juvenile facilities, which of course they've combined to make it more palatable to us. Still weeks away following this what they call a charrette. I call it a charade, 4 days worth of sales pitches that refuse to answer real questions, like where's the money going to come from. But here's the most important sentence in there. It says, however, the final decision by the County Board of Commissioners is likely still several weeks away, perhaps coming after the November 6th general election. So that means that this very expensive jail, which they appear to be definitely going to go ahead on. It's hard to find anybody who's against it, with the exception perhaps of some of the folks running for to replace some of the long-timers at the county commission. But they're going to put the decision off to after the election, and it would seem to me, again, that if you care about our county, pick up the phone, call your county commissioner. You can go to Ion Muskegon. On the right side is a link where you can get their home phone numbers, which have all been published in the Muskegon County directory, and give them a call and find out where they stand, because it seems to me that you ought to know.
Call them about 4 a.m.
Call them 4 a.m. Well, yeah, they're not overworked.
That's why you wanted the job so bad, right?
Well, I didn't want it that badly, and I certainly wouldn't have minded getting a call at 4 a.m. At least if I had dodged the answer to the question of what is your view on the jail.
Right.
So,
and you were sounding like Schwarzenegger when you answered the phone.
Yes. Old news. Anyway, another interesting event, and this has to do with how important your votes are, and frankly, how important it is that we keep an eye on our elected officials. There were 4 contested or recounts done in this past election. The most important one was Susie Hughes, who beat, actually she increased her lead over the first-term Democrat incumbent Scott Plummer. Susie Hughes also ran as a Democrat. There's no Republican there, so she solidified her position there. But there was one recount in Montague Township, which has only one ward, and it was a very close. It was like 50 to 51 or 50-50. And unfortunately, that's the number of votes, so relatively small number of votes for, I believe it was a township trustee. Well, the problem was that the township clerk screwed up and did not correctly seal the ballot bag where they're supposed to put in, which is really a pretty simple thing to do. And I've spoken with other county clerks, and the current Muskegon County Clerk, Nancy Waters, has really done a great job at making sure that these township and city clerks had the tools and were well educated and everything else. Well, they only had one bag. It wasn't even as if they had a variety of different precincts in here. And they screwed it up so that this one vote recount was made invalid. They couldn't even recount. I know that if I lived out there, I'd be screaming bloody murder. That's what a clerk is supposed to do. And the procedure to seal the bag is really pretty simple. And anyway, that we've got to put these people under the gun. I'm not saying execute them or anything of that sort, but it does seem to me that we should demand that the folks do get the job done. Or as Clint Eastwood said last week, he says sometimes you just got to, if they're not doing the job, you got to get rid of them and bring somebody else in who can do the job. And speaking of doing the job, I went to a meet and greet with a county commissioner candidate, Mark Molitor, who is running in the Muskegon area. He'll be running against the current incumbent, who's a Democrat. Mark is a Republican. The Democrat is Ben Cross. And Mark gave an incredible presentation. Actually, I think had I seen his presentation and taken some of his ideas, I might very well have won my election. It was very well done, and he put together a comparison. He had a little PowerPoint. He put together a comparison of Muskegon County's indebtedness and other things, and compared it with Ottawa County, and it was stunning. And for those of you who would like to see this, it is the link is on Eye on Muskegon. It's just a Molitor meet and greet. It's also on MuskegonPundit.com. But I would recommend that you take a look at it. If you want to know why we're in the mess we are in, Mark's presentation really hits the nail on the head. And when you hear county commissioners and you hear county administration say, oh, no, we're doing just fine, well, folks, we're not. In particular, with our closest neighbors, those who are booming, and we are not. And that to me is very frightening. We're getting close to the end of the day here. A couple of things. As usual, and I keep forgetting this, but I am when the county commission meets, which typically is the first 6 Tuesdays and Thursdays of each month, I'm at Carmen's Cafe, downtown Muskegon, from 2 to about 3:15. You're more than welcome to stop in, say hi, and we talk about politics. We talk about what's going to be discussed during that day's meetings, and any other things that you'd like to. Don't forget that you can always listen to the show on the internet 24/7, any place in the galaxy, at eyeonmuskegon.com. I typically will get the show posted in the afternoon on Sundays. I'm on Talkin' Muskegon Show with John Van Wyck and Brian Worsham every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock on same channel here, 1090 WKBZ. And, of course, Oscar gets us on primetime television, and you can watch Tammy and the rest of us on Monday nights, Comcast Channel 397, TV 38 if you got rabbit ears, from 8 to about 9:30. And, guys, thanks, Oscar, Tammy, Nick DeLue, Bradley Dean. Sounds like an interesting guy coming in next Saturday. And all of you wonderful listeners out there, we really need you folks. Pass the word. No one is out there talking about what's going on here in Muskegon politics in the way that we are. And we want to get better. And if you help us out, we will get better. So next week, Eye in Muskegon will be back. We're going to start our 2nd year. And we will continue our quest.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Well, they said it couldn't be done.
Should I wear a tie?
I'll be back. And we will continue our quest to expose what the power brokers and the big spenders don't want you to know. And stay tuned. If we got you too depressed now, stay tuned for Tom Sinaki's Polka Melodies. That'll cheer you up.
Yeah.
So have a great week in our little piece of heaven, folks. Next week, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Oh, don't you know? Oh, don't you love him sometimes? Hey, boy.